Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a massive geopolitical shift. Russia's July 2026 aerial attack wasn't just another strike. It actually exposed a really dangerous gap in Ukraine's air defenses. And it highlighted a major vulnerability for the entire transatlantic alliance. We're going to dive into the raw numbers, the actual physics of missile defense, and the industrial realities behind all those headlines.
Okay, let's map out exactly what happened on the ground. Overnight, between July 5th and 6th, the Russian Federation launched this massive, coordinated aerial offensive. According to the Ukrainian Air Force, an astonishing 419 airborne weapons entered their airspace. And they didn't just come all at once. They came in these rapid, relentless waves, hitting Kyiv at 1:40 in the morning, again at 2:10, and a third time at 3:15 a.m.
So, here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll cover the July 2026 attack. Second, the interception asymmetry. Third, why ballistic defense fails. Fourth, NATO's production bottleneck. And finally, what to watch next.
Let's jump right into Section 1, the July 2026 attack.
The human cost of this offensive was just devastating, because search and rescue teams had to literally dig through the rubble of multi-story residential buildings over several days. Casualty figures changed as rescue operations continued. AP and CBS reported at least 22 deaths, while other outlets reported higher figures such as 26. There is a huge contrast in how this attack was framed, too. Russian claims stated that they targeted only military and energy sites, but Ukraine reported that none of the ballistic or hypersonic missiles were intercepted, and authorities recorded multiple impact sites. This caused extensive, documented damage in Kyiv's civilian residential districts. Take the suburb of Vyshnev, for example. An impact on an industrial zone there triggered secondary explosions, which forced the immediate evacuation of over 600 local residents.
Moving on to Section 2, the interception asymmetry.
Now, this data perfectly illustrates a wild asymmetry in modern air defense. Out of 351 launch strike drones, Ukraine successfully intercepted 326 of them. That's a massive success rate. They even shot down 37 out of 39 cruise missiles. But against the 29 high-speed ballistic and hypersonic missiles, the interception rate was exactly 0. Which brings us to Section 3, why ballistic defense fails. The difficulty here comes down to basic physics. A cruise missile is essentially an uncrewed jet. It flies horizontally at relatively subsonic speeds, around 800 kilometers per hour. Because its path is pretty predictable, standard defenses can track it and shoot it down. But ballistic missiles? They operate on an entirely different level. They're launched way up into the upper atmosphere and then plunge straight down toward their targets at terminal speeds exceeding Mach 5. That is over 6,000 kilometers per hour. Defenders literally only have seconds to react. So, to stop a Mach 5 threat, standard blast fragmentation missiles just won't cut it. You need a highly specialized, very scarce tool. Specifically, the Patriot PAC-3 Missile Segment Enhancement, or MSE. This advanced interceptor uses what's called kinetic hit-to-kill technology. It doesn't just blow up near the target. Instead, it acts like a highly maneuverable bullet that physically rams right into the incoming ballistic missile at extreme closing speeds to destroy it. It's truly one of the only systems on Earth that can pull this off.
The problem is, Russia knows exactly how rare these interceptors are. They capitalize on this by using mixed salvo saturation tactics. First, they launch swarms of cheap drones. We're talking maybe $20,000 a pop. This forces the defender to turn on their active radars and either let the drones hit or shoot them down. Either way, it drains their magazines. And then, once the defenses are totally overwhelmed or empty, that's when Russia launches the high-end ballistic missiles. This brings us to a really fundamental truth of modern warfare, summed up perfectly by the empty launcher metaphor. A sophisticated, multi-million-dollar defense, radar, and launcher system, it is completely useless without a continuous supply of physical interceptor missiles. At the end of the day, air defense is just a brutal mathematical equation of supply versus incoming threats.
Let's look at Section 4, NATO's production bottleneck.
Because this isn't just a battlefield problem in Ukraine. It's a massive transatlantic defense industrial bottleneck. When we look at reported figures and analyst estimates, the math is honestly pretty grim. Before recent efforts to scale up, U.S. baseline production was roughly 620 PAC-3 interceptors a year. Yet analyst estimates say Ukraine's operational need to defend its cities is roughly 2,000 interceptors annually. You simply cannot fight an industrial-scale war of attrition with peacetime production efficiency. And compounding this massive manufacturing bottleneck was a major geopolitical shock earlier in the year. Defense analysts note that global supplies were severely strained between February and May of 2026, when U.S. and allied forces consumed an estimated 1,430 Patriot munitions during the conflict with Iran. This heavy consumption meant the Pentagon couldn't just easily transfer excess operational stockpiles to Ukraine, because, well, the reserves just aren't there anymore.
Finally, Section 5. What to watch next?
With operational stockpiles running this low, there are a few key indicators we need to watch closely. The July attack directly influenced the 2026 NATO summit in Ankara, sparking urgent debates about building joint European production facilities for Patriot missiles to take some pressure off the U.S. We also need to watch for the physical transfer of active Patriot systems from European allies to Ukraine. But perhaps most crucially, watch how Ukraine adapts asymmetrically. Since they can't fully defend their skies, they've been launching their own deep strikes into Russia. On the exact same day as the Kyiv attack, Ukrainian drones traveled 2,500 kilometers to hit the Omsk oil refinery deep in Siberia, trying to disrupt Russian logistics right at the source.
So, what does this all mean? Ultimately, this explainer leaves us with one crucial takeaway. The events of July 2026 exposed a really dangerous gap in Ukraine's defenses, but the root cause goes way beyond the battlefield. This story is fundamentally about whether Ukraine and NATO can produce, supply, and sustain the air defense shield fast enough to keep up with Russia's missile war. It's a question of industrial capacity, and it's absolutely crucial for the future of this conflict. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. I hope it brought some vital clarity to a really complex situation.